Okay, so I'm really excited to be here today to talk about high performance in the selection process and why now is the right time to start thinking about that, whether you're planning to be a pilot in the next 6 months or the next 6 years. The sooner you can start, the better, really. And let me just start off by telling you a little bit about myself, first of all. So I'm a psychologist with a background in occupational psychology. So that's all about psychology of the workplace and how we can reach our maximum performance. I have 8 years experience working in the aviation industry, designing selection tests, so psychometric tests and personality questionnaires, and also as an interviewer and assessor as well. So today I'm here on behalf of Symbiotics. So we are a test provider in the aviation industry. We provide tests to airlines, flight schools through our ADAPT system. We work across more than 80 different countries, and many of the flight schools here today are our partners. So if you're going for some of those, as you can see here, the logos, you will come up against our tests at some point. So why should you start thinking about assessment now? Many people do see the selection process as a kind of single event, so something that you think about briefly once you put in that flight school application or apply for that airline program. However, this is not the case. Psychometric testing and aptitude testing, as we call it, pilot aptitude testing, is present all the way throughout your career. So you'll come up against them when you apply for that first training opportunity, but you'll also come up against them again when you apply for your first airline, when you move between airlines, or even when you're going through a command upgrade to be a captain. Additionally, if you are planning on flying in Europe, psychological testing is actually now mandatory under the European Aviation Safety Association as well. And that's really about making sure that the right people are in the cockpit to ensure a safe flight. So if you're going to fly in Europe, you can guarantee that you will be doing some of these tests at some point. Selection can also be a highly competitive process. So while some flight schools, airlines might have a minimum set standard that you need to meet in order to get in and secure a place, others might be looking for only the brightest and best. And therefore, they might be using that selection process to only take the top performers. Therefore, if you want to get your place on that dream program, best preparation as possible will help you, make that dream come true. And lastly, the selection process is relevant to your training as well. So it is designed to measure the skills, the knowledge, the capabilities that you will need to be successful in your training. So by preparing for the aptitude process, you will also be well prepared for the training, and you can go into your training with confidence that you're making the right investment and you have that capability to pass the training. So what is the assessment actually looking for? The good news is that you don't need to guess. There's already a really good framework in place that identifies the key skills, knowledges, aptitudes, and traits that a pilot needs to have. And that is the ICAO pilot competency. So ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and they define these 9 pilot competencies that all pilots need to show throughout their career. And that includes things like leadership, teamwork, decision-making, workload management, actually flying the aircraft as well. So because you need to demonstrate those skills in the role, that is what the selection process will be looking for, to see that you have the capability to demonstrate those skills. So by getting to know this framework and learning a bit more about the pilot competencies, you can understand what you're going to need to be able to demonstrate in that selection process. So while the pilot competencies are universal and they are seen across all pilot roles, from your training all the way up to flying as a captain, each individual airline or training organization might be looking for slightly different things as well in terms of your motivation, your attitudes, and your fit for the particular organization. So each training institute has its own particular style, each airline has its own values and way of working, so they might also be looking to see that you are a good fit for them. So let's just have a look then at the different types of assessment. So first off, we have knowledge tests. So knowledge tests, as the name suggests, are looking at your knowledge in a particular topic or subject area. So for your flight training, that's likely going to be your maths and physics knowledge to make sure that you have the right foundation to be able to be successful in the ground school. And these are usually in the form of exams, multiple choice questionnaires with right or wrong answers. Then we have ability tests. So ability tests look at a particular area of skill, and that can be thinking or doing tasks. So thinking is like tapping into your cognitive skills, your information processing, your memory capability, whereas the doing will be more about your physical skills, your hand-eye coordination. And there will also be potentially workload management tasks as well, or multitasking assessments that look at your ability to manage both thinking and doing tasks at the same time, like our FAST assessment that we use at Symbiotics. Then we have personality and behaviour tests. So these are tests that really look into what makes you tick, what are your preferences, how do you typically behave in different situations. We're all unique, and these questionnaires are about understanding what makes you you. And they typically come in the form of multiple choice questions that ask you to agree with a particular statement or ask you how you might respond to a particular situation. And then lastly, we have interviews and group exercises. So these might be done face-to-face, but they're increasingly being done more remotely as well via video conferencing software like Teams. And they'll likely be looking at a combination of the things we've already discussed. So there might be knowledge-based questions, but they'll also be looking at your motivation and whether you have some of the kind of softer skills, the leadership, the teamwork, the communication skills as well, and also your cultural fit, as we talked about previously, your fit for the organisation or airline. So how can you go about performing then to the best of your ability? So it might seem obvious, but preparation really is the key, and that's why we're all here this morning. So in our experience at Symbiotics, the number one reason people fail the selection process, whether that be in the psychometric testing or whether that be in the interview phase, is through a lack of preparation. So you want to be as prepared as possible so you can go into that process with confidence that you're going to perform to the highest of your capability. So make sure that you're researching the role that you're applying for. Again, look at those pilot competencies that we talked about so you understand what's going to be assessed, research the process, and make sure that you're reading really carefully anything that the airline or training school is sending you as well. And then you might want to consider what you might need to develop in terms of your knowledge or skills. So actually start thinking about what does the next step look like, what type of preparation might you need to do to be able to perform to the best of your capability. And the key to that is really about developing your self-awareness. So as the exercise earlier showed, we don't know ourselves until we try something or we get some feedback from others perhaps. So developing self-awareness and understanding your strengths, your areas for development is really key for that and will enable you to prepare in a strategic way as well to maximize those strengths and develop any areas that might need a bit of improvement. So spend a bit of time reflecting on your experiences. Self-reflection is a really important skill for pilots to have. They need to show that learning mindset throughout their career. They need to be able to take situations that they've experienced and learn lessons to continue to improve. So spend a bit of time thinking about the situations you've experienced in your life so far, your work experience, your education, your hobbies. What sort of skills have you developed from those? Also think about some situations that didn't go so well as well. So we all make mistakes, we all experience failure, but it's all about what we can learn and take from those situations. Also consider seeking some feedback. So often people recognize things in us that we maybe don't see in ourselves. So it's always valuable to think about the feedback that you've had from maybe a colleague, a teacher, a manager, or even ask a friend or family member what they see as being your strengths and maybe those weaker areas as well. And then the last way here you can develop your self-awareness is through taking a practice test. So practice tests are a really good way to get a realistic understanding of where your skills, your knowledge lie at that moment in time. And particularly if you choose a practice test that's designed to mirror your real assessment, that's going to give you a really realistic starting point of where you might need to develop and improve. Additionally, taking a personality questionnaire that comes with either a feedback session or a report can give you further insight into your strengths and those areas that you may need to work on. So what next? You've got an understanding of what you do well. You've got an understanding of maybe what doesn't go so well for you. How are you actually going to go about improving? So everybody is different. Everybody has different methods of preparation that work well for them. But it is always going to involve some element of practice, of repetition, of really sort of digging into preparation materials to make sure that you're ready, and really honing your skills through being able to apply them. You might need to expand on your experiences for this. So while some of your daily life might give you the chance to further develop those skills, you may actually need to go out and seek new experiences as well. So if there's a particular gap in your experiences, consider how you might address that through additional work experience, through a new hobby perhaps. And again, taking a practice test or a mock interview can help you improve through applying those skills, through putting them into practice, and gives a really helpful way to track your progress over time as well. So having a look more specifically then about how you can prepare for the different types of tests. Firstly, knowledge tests. So this is really about getting back to basics, revising your study materials, going through your notes, plenty of resources available, whatever works for you, study guides, cue cards. It's really just about making sure that knowledge sticks. But you can also consider how you might apply that knowledge in daily life as well. So, for example, mental maths calculations are an important part of the sort of maths element of the ground school. So perhaps you can practice adding things up in your head when you're buying the shopping, when you're dividing a restaurant bill, rather than using your phone or a calculator. And also, of course, testing yourself as well. So doing a mock maths exam, doing a practice test can help you, again, to track that improvement and measure your performance over time. Next, we've got coordination tests then. So coordination tests are all about your physical skills. So they're about your hand-eye coordination, your dexterity. So here, getting involved in any activities that involve, getting your body moving can really help here. So aerobics, yoga, team sports, all of those things help improve our focus, our concentration, and balance, stamina, things like that as well. You can also look to improve your sort of fine motor skills. So through something like model making, learning an instrument, even painting or knitting can help perfect those smaller movements. And even something as simple as playing a game of catch helps our hand-eye coordination. Of course, there's plenty of puzzles, games, practice tests, and things out there that you can use as well. So using something that involves a joystick, perhaps, that is similar to the flight controls that you'll be using in the aircraft is a really good idea. Microsoft Flight Simulator is a great example of that, but there's also many sort of similar, more basic tests online that you can find as well. And then lastly, you might want to practice your multitasking, develop your workload management skills. So you can sort of create a situation there where you're doing something physical, so playing a game, for example, and perhaps ask a friend or a family member to ask you questions at the same time as well, so you can practice thinking and doing simultaneously. Next up, we have personality and behavioural questionnaires. The really important thing to remember here is that there is no right or wrong personality. We all have our own unique strengths and weaknesses, and airlines aren't looking for one certain person. They really just want to get to know you as a person, get to know how you would fit into their organisation. So try to be as open and honest as possible. Also, try not to overthink it as well. They're not there to trick you or trip you up. So usually going with your gut response, your first response, is the best way forward. Sometimes people do find this element of the selection process to perhaps be the most anxiety-inducing because it's something new, there's no right or wrong, it's less black and white than something like a knowledge test. So trying an example questionnaire or some sample questions can be a really good way to familiarise yourself with that process and help make it a more relaxing experience. And then lastly, we have interviews. So again, preparation is key here, as with the previous slides. So make sure you're doing your research, research the pilot role, those core skills that we talked about, understand what the job looks like day to day, research the training process, the place you're applying to, think about what sort of challenges you might experience in that training, and really try to immerse yourself in the aviation industry as well. So being here today is a great step towards that, but there's plenty of other resources available, the news, social media, that can really help you understand what's going on in the industry and how aviation ticks. Spend a bit of time reflecting on your motivation as well. So I'm sure that everybody in this room is really passionate about being a pilot and about aviation, but can you actually put that into words and explain why? What is it about the pilot role that appeals to you? So think about what you might say. How might you explain that to somebody beyond it just being a dream? Spend a bit of time familiarizing yourself with example questions as well, perhaps, and in particular, competency questions. So these are questions that are designed to tap into those core skills that we talked about earlier through looking at examples of your past experiences. So they ask you to reflect on a particular situation. So that might be like, give me an example of a time when you worked in a team, or give an example of a difficult decision that you had to make. So think about some of your experiences and some of the examples you might choose to use here. However, I would say try not to overscript your answers as well. You want to be natural, you want to be flexible to the question. So while it's good to have some examples in mind, try not to rely too heavily on memorizing specific examples there as well. And of course, you can practice with a friend or a family member, or consider doing a mock interview. Even practicing by yourself in front of a mirror can really help, just actually putting those words out there and practice how you're going to present yourself in that interview. Lastly, as we've said before, you may need to build on your experiences. So have a think about your current skill set. If there's any areas that you're maybe less confident in, so for example, if you struggle to think of a leadership example, maybe you can go out and volunteer, take on a new hobby, something that will help you to develop these skills. Or if you're less confident in communicating, practice something that involves getting involved in a team, and that will help you to be able to ace the interview. So in summary, preparation really is the key here. It makes sure that you're confident, you're familiar with the process, knowing what to expect can help you go into that selection process, perform to the best of your ability, and get onto that dream program. Additionally, it will help make sure that you are ready for the training as well, and you can be confident in making that investment and that first step into your pilot career. Symbiotics have a number of different practice tests available on our website, including mock interviews and personality questionnaire feedback as well. So please do come and talk to us on stand B12, and we'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about our tests. There's also a QR code here as well. That will take you to our free pilot readiness indicator, which is a great starting point. Just gives you an idea of your maths, physics, cognitive, and English ability, and that can help you then tailor your preparation to any areas that may be a little bit weaker. So thanks very much for listening, everybody. I hope to speak to you a little bit later today over on the stand, and hopefully see some of you acing those airline assessments and training assessments in the next few years as well.
So, yeah, thank you, Caroline. There's a question, where can I get a practice test? This is where you can find it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that will take you to our free test, but also on our website we have a whole range of practice tests covering all the areas we've discussed. Knowledge tests, multitasking, personality, it's all there, mock interviews as well. But do, like I say, come and talk to us on the stand, and we'll be happy to advise you a bit further on what might work best for you.
Is it possible to take part of an assessment center for practice?
So that's not something that we offer at the moment in terms of a full assessment experience, but the way our tests are designed is that so you can do things at your own pace, so you can practice the knowledge tests, you might then move on to the practical tests, and then you might want to finish up with a practice interview as well. So we do sell bundle packages that allow you to practice all of those things at once, but it's all web-based, so you can go through those things in your own time as well. So you can kind of create that assessment center experience at a pace that works well for you.
What are the most common reasons for failing the personality test?
So with the personality questionnaires that we use, there is no pass or fail on them. As we said, they're just about getting an insight into you as a person, your strengths, any areas for development. However, some airlines, some ATOs, they do use those questionnaires to maybe screen out somebody that's perhaps less of a good fit for their environment or their culture. So just because you're maybe not successful with one airline or one training organization doesn't mean that you wouldn't be a really good fit for another as well. And that's where the assessment also benefits you as an individual. You're making this huge investment into your training and your future. You want to make sure that you're also going to the right place as well.
So even if I'm not applying for flight school or for being a pilot, is it worthwhile taking the test as well? For me, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have practice tests from a cadet level all the way up to experienced pilots, instructors. We've done personality questionnaires with astronauts as well, so they're used in a number of different settings, but our focus is very much on aviation and the pilot role. So when we give the feedback session, which is an hour-long video call with one of our psychologists, we will go through your strengths, any areas that you might want to work on specific to the aviation environment. It's a very aviation-focused questionnaire. It's all about covering those pilot competencies. As
for the test, the free test, is there any limits how many times you can take the test?
So the free test is a one-off sort of thing. I mean, you could take it multiple times, but it gives you a really detailed report on the 4 areas that we've talked about. So what you would probably benefit most from doing is doing the test, getting the report output, looking at where you then might have an area to focus on, and then perhaps looking at a more detailed practice test, because it's a little bit more like touch. It's a good introductory test, but I'd recommend then when you want to kind of focus your practice, buying a full sort of test experience, or even finding other ones online. I'm not saying you necessarily have to use ours, but any experience and any practice will do you a world of good.
So, and if I buy this practice test, is this just a single use, or you can take it more than once? Yeah, so the way our tests are designed, you get multiple attempts at the assessment. So, for example, the knowledge test, you get 5 attempts. After each attempt, you get a report. It gives you an indication of how much percentage you got right and wrong. You can then go away and improve on those areas, go back to your revision, come back, take the test again, and then track that progress over time. And you get access for 3 months as well, so it's not something that you need to do all in one go. You can plan out your preparation. The same with the practical tests as well. You get multiple attempts at those, and you get quite a detailed report. For example, with our FAST assessment, it will tell you about your practical skills, your thinking skills, and also about your situation awareness as well. So you can then, again, go away, come back, focus on those areas, really try to sort of perfect that multitasking. The only ones that we don't do multiple with is the personality questionnaire, and because as we said, there's no right or wrong, so taking it again, you would expect to get the same result, and it's more about helping you in your general preparation and your self-awareness. It's not like I don't like my personality, so I take the test once again, and then a different personality, right? Absolutely. And some people, they maybe do try to respond in a certain way to the personality questionnaire, what they think the airline wants to hear. I would definitely not recommend doing that. Often the questionnaire will sit alongside an interview, for example, and the interviewer will be using that questionnaire, and they want to see a match. They want to see that you know yourself and that you're self-aware. So actually what we see is that sometimes if people try to manipulate the questionnaire, respond in a certain way, it works against them more than just being themselves. And as we said, we're not looking for the perfect person. We all have weaknesses, areas for development. That is normal. It's just about understanding them so we can address them. Ladies and gentlemen, Symbiotics, Caroline, let's give it up for Symbiotics. And you can find Symbiotics at the booth, right? Yeah, and ask questions. Yeah, we're over on B12 today, so there's plenty of us here. Please do come and talk to us. And thanks very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you.